boy, it feels so good to be back. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for today's NBA playoff edition of the ever so popular PrizePicks Prop Research Show. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button now. Make sure that notifications are turned on. You can do that by going down to the bottom of the video here and ringing that bell. Make sure you ring that bell so that you are notified every time that I go live talking about different player props here on PrizePicks. Also, if you don't play on PrizePicks yet, it's a great time to sign up. Obviously, the NBA playoffs start today. MLB has just started. We got NHL playoffs around the corner, and there's a whole bunch of other sports that PrizePicks offers. It's really the best way to play daily fantasy sports and play player props. So if you want to sign up for PrizePicks, use promo code Curry to get a 100% instant deposit match on your first deposit all the way up to $100. So if you want to just dip your toe in the water, put in $20, they're going to match that, giving you $40. If you want to take full advantage of the deal, drop $100 into your PrizePicks account, and then they'll give you $100 on top of that. You'll have $200 to help carry you through the NBA playoffs. Again, promo code Curry, you see it floating above my head. There's a link down in the description below to make your life a bit easier to get signed up and start using PrizePicks today. Few days off, gang. It's been a while, but I'm glad that we're back here together. I'm glad that we're able to convene here out on YouTube and talk about some NBA player props. We got 2 games tonight. Both of these games are NBA playoff play-in games. So we got a number of different teams here, the Cleveland Cavaliers and Brooklyn Nets. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Cleveland Cavaliers and Brooklyn Nets. We got 227 points between these two teams. That's the first game of the night. It is a 9.5-point spread at the time of this live stream. So keep an eye on that line. I think that line has grown. I think it was 8.5 at one point. Now it's 9.5. So some interesting NBA matchups here. Obviously, these two teams just played each other, a few nights ago, a few games back. So they're running it back here in this playoff game tonight. Jared Allen's going to be out for Cleveland. Dean Wade probably going to be out as well. Really, the only injury news that I saw from this morning was going to be from this next game, which is the Clippers and Minnesota Timberwolves. This one tips off at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. 230.5 points between these two teams, so pretty high scoring game. 2.5-point spread. So I would recommend that you could take full game props from this one and feel okay. It looks like it's going to be fairly high scoring. It's going to stay close and competitive. Doesn't look like it's going to be a blowout, but of course, with the NBA, anything can happen, right? Luke Kennard was the only injury news that I saw from this morning. Now, obviously, that could change, so definitely keep an eye on NBA injury news like we've been doing, for everything post All-Star break, I would say. The NBA injury news and who's in, who's out, has been crazy. But luckily, just 2 games tonight, not a whole lot of injury news or anything like that. So both of these games look like pretty good ones. This one here looks like it's going to be the more competitive of the two. This one could creep into blowout territory. The Cavaliers did get Evan Mobley back recently, so maybe they make things a little bit more competitive with Mobley. But I'm sure Jared Allen wishes he could be here. Anyway, let's run through the chat real quick and see who's joining us this morning. We got Hunter Scott in the building. He says these play-in props are juicy. JC says if you are in here already, make sure to smash the like button. Yes, I would much appreciate you smashing that like button. Again, that is the #1 way to help the channel grow, to let me know that you like what I do. And hitting that like button costs you nothing. Just a little bit of effort, just a little bit of energy to go tap the like button. So if you could do that for me, I would be forever grateful. Jimmy Green says, good morning, beautiful people. Please smash the like button on this video. It's general admission. Exactly, general admission. Let's see. Drew Breeze is in the building. He says, good morning, Patreon gang. Glad to be back. Let's have a good Taco Tuesday. You flex, I flex back. Yes, it is Taco Tuesday. That is a very good and valid point. Apparently, there's already an MLB taco being voted on. I don't know if it's live yet, but it sounds like this guy, Shane Bieber, pitcher for Cleveland. Sounds like Bieber's going to be a discounted strikeout prop. I think he's going to go from 6 down to 5. So I think that's going to be the first taco on the board, and then I think they plan on doing some NBA tacos a little later on in the day. But keep an eye out on Shane Bieber here and his strikeout prop of 6. Again, I do believe that this has been voted on, that this will be discounted from 6 strikeouts down to 5. So yes, that would be a nice start to today's Taco Tuesday. Anyway, good point. Glad you pointed that out, Mr. Drew Breeze. Thank you so much. Mark H says, missed y'all the last few days, but I'm back and ready for the tacos. What's up, CJ? What's up to you, Mark? Thanks for being here. Let's see. Everyday Fantasy says, great to be back with the live streams. Good morning, Mr. Chef, CJ, and the most consistent team in props, the Patreon gang. Today will be profitable only if you're in Patreon. Let's get it. Well, yes, I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Don P111. In case y'all are in Discord and you're wondering who this is, he's one of our Patreon members, one of our community members. And we had ourselves a pretty decent day yesterday, I think, taking some MLB props with the NBA being off. No NBA games yesterday, so we ended up going baseball heavy, MLB heavy. And yes, my favorite projection system for MLB, in case you guys were wondering, is the Bat X by Derek Carty. So I saw somebody make a comment about like Roto Grinders or something like, I don't get my picks from Roto Grinders, but I get my favorite player model for baseball for MLB is available through Roto Grinders. It's the Bat by Derek Carty. And if you don't use the Bat X by Derek Carty for your MLB props, well, you're just running away from money. I guess you don't like money. So, yeah, that is partially true, I guess. I get my picks from Roto Grinders. I guess if you want to consider the Bat X a part of Roto Grinders, I mean, yeah, I like Derek Carty and I like the Bat X. So that is where I get my player prop research done, projection models and things like that. The Bat X, the best in the business for MLB props. Let's see here. King United says playoffs today. Let's get it. Absolutely. King Saab says, yo, good morning, gang. Hope everyone has a good money-making Tuesday. Well, that doesn't really go. Money-making Monday was yesterday. Today's Taco Tuesday, but I'll take it. I'll take it, King. Tony Ruiz says, good morning, CJ and the Patreon group. MLB yesterday was good. MLB and NBA playoffs today. Let's go. RJ's in the building. If you see this, I hope you cash your bets today, man. I thank you for bringing that positive energy to the live stream. Duncan, good morning to you. Aaron Rodgers, what's good? We got R. Clemens who says, wake up. I'm awake. Leroy, let's go. Wayne Wicked, what you think about Karl Anthony Towns' PRA? We'll get into that. We'll definitely get into that. We'll look at some points, some assists, some rebounds, some PRA, some fantasy score, 3-point makes, free throw makes, whatever you guys want to look at. This show's all about you. It ain't about me. So whatever you guys tell me you want to look at, we'll definitely take a look at. Shout out to Reyes for being here. Cord Ross is in the building. Eric Anthony's here. Shout out to you. Punchline, thanks for being here. Magic's in the building. Good morning to you. Hope you and everyone in here has a great day today. Let's get it. Let's get it, Magic. Let's get it. We'll get it. Don't you worry about that. We gonna get it. Mike from the Fours is here. Eradicate and obliterate that like button. Eviscerate it too. Right, Mike? Jojo Rabbit, good morning to you. Thanks for joining. Always pee when poo, not always poo when pee. That is an interesting name, man. But what's up to you? Thank you for letting the people know that you're smashing that like button. Travis is in the building. Let's get money tonight. Love the energy, Travis. Chaz Stokes, what's good to you, Chaz? Bucks, good morning. Twan99, good morning to you. Ari's in the building. Good morning. Anthony Taylor, let's go. Good morning, fam. Like button has been activated. Appreciate that. Bout it. Says, what up, Chef Curry? Let's cook up some W's. Let's do it, man. Divine Truth Allah, I see you. Kive or Keeve, thanks for being here, man. All right. Scott, I see you. I see you. All right, let's get down to business, y'all. Just 2 games. Appreciate everybody being here. Shout out to all the fine folks out there in the live chat joining me for NBA player prop research on this little 2-game NBA playoff play-in slate. Bo from Brandon is bad at basketball. Interesting. Yeah, I think he's bad. Anyway, let's get down to business. We're going to be using props.cash as we have in some of the live streams in the past. Well, pretty much all the live streams in the past recently, right? So if you want to sign up for props.cash, I can get you 25% off your first month. Use code Curry at checkout when you join props.cash for the very first time, and you'll save 25% off your first month. You can take advantage of NBA playoff action. You can take advantage of MLB, obviously NHL. 3 sports going on right now. You're getting a very good bang for your buck at just $19.99 a month on props.cash. So let's go ahead and filter this out. We'll start by looking at the earlier game, which is Cleveland and Brooklyn. We're going to be looking at the points props, and we're going to be looking at the last 10 games and seeing who's been covering their points props at the highest hit rate. This is how I like to filter out some of these props, like, kind of narrow down the slate a little bit, try to focus in on a couple of props that are really shining. So we'll be using props.cash to help us do that. So if you guys have any points props that you're wanting me to take a look at, go ahead and shoot them into the chat. We'll start with points. We'll move on to assists, rebounds, PRA, etc., etc. But we're definitely going to start off with points. So speaking of points here, the guy that's hitting his points prop at the highest hit rate, according to props.cash, is Seth Curry of the Brooklyn Nets at 11.5 points. He's got a 70% hit rate over the last 10 games. Then you got Bruce Brown, Andre Drummond, both hitting at a 60% hit rate. Throw Nick Claxton in there as well. Lauri Markkanen of the Cavaliers is actually the one hitting his points prop at the highest clip over the last 10 games, a 60% hit rate at 15.5 points. From there, you got Isaac Okoro, Kevin Durant, Evan Mobley, Kyrie Irving, Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, all hitting at a 50% hit rate or less. So the reason that you're going to probably see some low hit rates is that, as somebody mentioned in the live chat, these teams are going to be running shortened rotations, meaning they're not going to be digging deep into the bench. You're going to get guys like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving playing a lot more minutes tonight than they have in previous games. And so therefore their props are going to look a little bit higher, a little bit more challenging or daunting. Like Kevin Durant at 31.5 points. I think he was at 29.5 points or something, 28.5 points a few days ago. But being that it's a playoff situation, teams like Brooklyn, Cleveland, Minnesota, LA, they're not going to go deep into their rotations, right? They're going to keep it pretty short, and they're going to get their stars as many minutes as they can handle. So you're going to see the props be a little bit higher than maybe what you're used to seeing over the last few days, which is fine. So anyway, Seth Curry's leading the way here, 70% hit rate. So let me know what points props you guys are wanting to look at. We'll take a look at some of these other props you guys are mentioning in just a bit, but we want to start off with some points. So let's scroll through here, see if you guys have any points. I see Collect Grails is talking about Bruce Brown for points. He's at 13.5 going up against Cleveland. We could start with Bruce Brown. I mentioned Bruce Brown. He's hitting at a 60% hit rate over the last 10 games. So let's use props.cash here to take a closer look at Bruce Brown and see maybe what we can expect from Bruce Brown against the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. So the last 10 games for Bruce Brown at 13.5 points. You can see he's been averaging 15 points per game in that 10-game span, 16.4 points per game in the last 5. So he's really been turning it on in the last 5 or 6 games. 80% hit rate in the last 5. So 4 out of 5 games he has exceeded 13.5 points. And if you want to take it back even further, you can see he's gone over his 13.5 points in 5 out of his last 6 games. So 5 out of 6 is a pretty darn good hit rate. Now against Cleveland this season, not the greatest hit rates in the world. 1 for 3, a 33% hit rate. He did cover his 13.5 points in their most recent matchup, which was from April 8th, 4 days ago. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, these teams just played each other. 4 days ago, they just played each other. Bruce Brown had 18 points in that contest. So that's kind of encouraging. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. Maybe he goes over against Cleveland tonight. Now, one other thing that we could take a look at for Bruce Brown here that we've been kind of diving into a little bit more is his splits. Home splits versus road splits. Tonight, he's going to be at home as they host Cleveland in Brooklyn. So let's start by looking at the away splits. This season, just a 14% hit rate at 13.5 points. That's pretty terrible. That's pretty bad, right? But at home, a 41% hit rate in home games. And when you look at the last 10 games specifically at home, he's got a 90% hit rate. So he's gone over 13.5 points in 9 out of his last 10 games in Brooklyn. That's a pretty darn good hit rate. He does show quite a significant scoring output, a scoring difference when he plays at home versus away. Fair to say? Last 10 games at home, 90%. Last 10 games on the road, 30%. I would say that's pretty significant. 90% versus 30%. Okay? So he's at home tonight. So maybe that bodes well for his chances of going over 13.5 points. So we scroll down, we look at the Cleveland defense. You're going to see a lot of red up on the board, meaning bad. Red mean bad. Green mean good. In this case, there's lots of red on the board. So, could be a challenging matchup. Cleveland's defense, not quite what it is when Jared Allen's healthy, when Colin Sexton's healthy. They've been without those guys for a while, so I would take some of these numbers with a grain of salt. They probably have changed somewhat. But they do rank 5th in points allowed, 7th in field goal percentage allowed, 5th in three-pointers allowed, 15th in three-point field goal percentage allowed, 2nd in free throws, but just 26th against opposing shooting guards. Now, Bruce Brown, kind of a shooting guard, kind of a small forward. He's a wing player, right? More of a wing player than anything. Because you got Seth Curry, who plays shooting guard. Bruce Brown, typically more of the small forward. KD's been playing the 4. And then, obviously, Andre Drummond's at center. Kyrie Irving's at point. But anyway, looking pretty decent here, especially considering the fact that it is a home game for Bruce Brown, who has a 90% hit rate at home at 13.5 points. So we'll have to see if Kyrie and KD want to share the basketball, if they're going to be ball hogging and freezing Bruce Brown out tonight. Now let's take a look at the last 7 games. We're going to go to the small forward position. We're going to look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and see how many points per game that they're giving up to small forwards, which again is more along the lines of what Bruce Brown is a small forward for the Nets. Cleveland's given up about 20.5 points per game. That sounds like a lot. For a guy who needs just 14 points, that sounds like plenty of wiggle room for him to potentially get 14 or more points. But, when you look at where they rank, that is actually the 6th fewest points allowed in the last 7 games to small forward. So kind of a tough matchup on paper. We'll also take a peek at the shooting guard spot. Doesn't really get any better. Now, again, I think this is more Seth Curry's role as the shooting guard. But Cleveland giving up about 17 points per game over the last 7 games to shooting guards. That is the 4th fewest. So they're doing a pretty decent job against both wing positions, shooting guards and small forwards, as far as limiting points to those positions. Let's go ahead and refresh here. We're going to use the action projection tools, which is a part of Fantasy Labs. We're going to take a look at Bruce Brown's projection tonight. He is projected for 14.2 points. Now, you could cross-reference these projections on a number of different free sites out there. You got NumberFire, you've got RotoWire, Betting Pros, a couple of different free sites out there. But the site that we're using today, Action Labs, has him projected for 14.2 points, which is more than 13.5. But despite the favorable projection, despite the favorable hit rates at home in the last 10 games, 90%, the betting public's taking the under on Bruce Brown today. Minus 125, minus 112, minus 130 on some books. What do you guys think? Is there enough evidence here to support taking the over on Bruce Brown at 13.5? Or are you going to tail the public and take the under on Bruce Brown, thinking he goes for 13 or less points? Let me know, gang. Let me know if you're liking the over or under on Bruce Brown's points. Let's see here. What else are you guys liking? We've talked some Bruce Brown points. What's some other popular points props that you guys want me to take a look at? We'll do the first half stuff. I see you guys talking about first half PRA. I'm seeing, which is a new category, by the way, offered on PrizePicks, a new market, first half PRA. We'll talk about first half stuff a little later. We're talking points right now, though. Points. I'm looking for points props. I don't see a whole lot of points props being dropped in here. ZKKZKZKZM says, don't be scared to take unders. Listen, don't be scared to take unders. You're right. LA Lee, shout out to you. Thanks for joining, man. Our Clemens says under is where the value is. Under is where the value is. There we go. Let's see. Darius Garland over points. Caleb Ryan wants to look at some Darius Garland over points. Let's do it. He's at 25.5 points. He's going up against Brooklyn, obviously. So we're focused on the Brooklyn Nets, Cleveland Cavaliers game. We're focused on points. So if you guys have any points props from this game that you guys want me to take a look at, let me know. Leave them in the chat. But Darius Garland at 25.5 points, you pull up his last 10 games, and it's a lot of red, meaning he has not gone over 25.5 points in very many games over the last 10. Just 3 games he's gone over. 28 against Chicago, 27 against Orlando, and coincidentally 31 the last time that he played Brooklyn. Speaking of Brooklyn, let's go ahead and take a closer look at his 4 games against the Brooklyn Nets this season. Played him 4 times. Only went over 1 time, and it was in that last game when he had 31 points against Brooklyn in Brooklyn. So on the road, which is going to be the situation tonight, he did go over against Brooklyn in their last matchup. Overall, averaging 25.3 points per game against the Nets. He's going to have to play a pretty darn good game to hit 26 or more. You can see he's had a floor of 22 points, a ceiling of 31. So I think this 25.5 is a pretty darn sharp number, man. They got a pretty sharp number up here for Darius Garland. Let's go ahead and take a look at his splits this season. At 25.5 points, we know he's going to be playing on the road tonight. So let's start by looking at the home splits. Just a 21% hit rate at home. Being that he's going to be on the road, though, these are the splits that we care about more. 31%. So a 10% difference in hit rates on the road versus at home. So he is a slightly better road scorer. Slightly. 10% is not a whole lot. Slightly better road scorer than he is a home scorer. So that's the split situation for Darius Garland. Moving it on down here, the Brooklyn Nets defense, 19th in points allowed, 8th in field goal percentage allowed, 17th in three-pointers allowed, 8th in three-point field goal percentage allowed, 25th in free throws allowed, and 9th against opposing point guards. So they do give up a lot of free throws. So if there's a free throw prop up for Darius Garland, maybe you look at that as a potential play. Maybe the points are a little too steep at 25.5 and you'd rather go free throws. I mean, that could be a move. Could definitely be a move. Speaking of a move, let's move forward here and take a look at the Brooklyn Nets defense over the last 7 games. How many points are they giving up to opposing point guards? We scroll down to about halfway through the list here, and they're giving up about 24 points per game. So they're giving up 24 to point guards. He needs 26. So it's going to have to be a special type of game for Darius Garland. Sometimes he comes out a little slow. Sometimes he comes out a little cold out of the gates. Takes him a quarter or two before he starts getting warmed up and finding his shot. I've seen plenty of situations toward the tail end of the season where the first half he's been kind of quiet. I don't think Cleveland can afford for Darius Garland to have a quiet, cold, or slow start tonight. So he's going to have to come out of the gates hot in order for them to stay competitive. So they're giving up 24 points per game to point guards in the last 7 games. He needs 26. 26 for the over. Garland's projection is about 25 tonight, which is slightly less than the 25.5 prop line that he's at over on PrizePicks. Now at 25.5 across the board here, we're seeing unders. The betting public smashing the under here. Minus 116, minus 125, and minus 120. Now, that's not to say that there's plus odds at 25.5 points over. I mean, there's still some minus odds at the over here. Minus 106, minus 105, minus 110. So it's not as lopsided for the under as you might think. There's people betting the over here too, but more people are betting the under. So what do you guys think? Darius Garland over or under? LA Lee's liking some Darius Garland over 2.5 threes. We could definitely take a look at that one. But hopefully that helps you out a little bit, Caleb, with your decision making. Either an under or a fade on Darius Garland, says R. Clemens. All right, I got you. What other points props are you guys liking from this Cleveland-Brooklyn game? I mean, I'm surprised. I'm not seeing any real conversation about Kyrie Irving points. I'm not really seeing any conversation about Kevin Durant's points. We know those guys have tremendous scoring upside. Some people are talking about Karis LeVert, either going under on Karis LeVert at 17.5 points or possibly just fading it altogether. I'm seeing Lauri Markkanen being discussed. Kevin Kernick is saying Lauri Markkanen worth a look. Let's take a look. We can look at Lauri Markkanen. He's at 16.5 points, obviously going up against Brooklyn. Again, we're starting things off with this Cleveland-Brooklyn game. That is the first game that's going to be tipping off tonight. So Lauri Markkanen at 16.5 points on PrizePicks. You're going to get him at 15.5 by default on props.cash. So if you're using props.cash, like I am, you're going to want to bump this up to 16.5. And his hit rates do change slightly. More of a 50% hit rate over the last 10 games. Now, I'll give him credit. The last 3 games, he's been scoring the basketball a bit better. 25, 17, and 23 in his last 3 games. So when we isolate the view here and look at just the last 5 games, you can see he's gone 3 for 5, or 60%. Dropping 25 against Orlando, 17 against Brooklyn, and 23 against Milwaukee. So last 3 games, he has been picking up the scoring output. Now, against Brooklyn this season, he has faced the Nets 3 different times. He has actually covered his points prop in 2 out of 3 meetings against the Brooklyn Nets. Good for a 67% hit rate. Also good for a 17.7 point per game average. He actually came pretty close here against Brooklyn. If he knocks down one more 3-pointer in this game back in January 17th, he would be 3 for 3 going over against this Brooklyn Nets squad. So he'll likely be matched up tonight. Maybe they put him up against Kevin Durant. I don't know if Kevin Durant's going to be guarding him on defense, but that seems like it would be the matchup. So I don't know if you're worried about KD as far as a defensive threat, clamping Lauri Markkanen, slowing Lauri Markkanen down. But that is probably going to be the matchup. Now, again, Cleveland is on the road. So let's take a look at the splits for Lauri Markkanen at home this season. At 16.5 points, a 33% hit rate. Not great. Away, which is the situation tonight, 39% hit rate. So slightly better. Again, very, very slim difference in terms of the hit rates at home versus the hit rates on the road. Nothing, major like we saw with Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown was pretty major. Agreed? I think Bruce Brown's hit rates, especially over the last 10 games, pretty major. A lot better scorer at home than he is on the road. But anyway, there's your splits for Lauri Markkanen. Slightly better on the road. We've already talked about the defensive matchup. Brooklyn ranking 10th against opposing power forwards, so kind of a tough matchup for him. So with Evan Mobley playing center, Lauri Markkanen most likely going to be slotted into the power forward position. If we go find the Brooklyn Nets here, you can see Brooklyn is giving up over 25 points per game to opposing power forwards in the last 7 games. That is within the top 10 most points allowed to the position in that 7-game span. I wish he was at 15.5 on PrizePicks, but I can understand why he's at 16.5. That's probably the more appropriate number. Now, Lauri Markkanen's projections today, 16.6 projected points. So that's slightly more than the 16.5. Again, PrizePicks is taking a higher number here, the high road, so to speak, on the 16.5 points. He's at 15.5 on every sports book you can reference right now. Now, as far as the juice or the action, which way the bets are coming in, well, we're seeing him being bet over on DraftKings, being bet under on FanDuel, over on BetMGM, and on PointsBet, nobody's touching this prop. It's even money still. So at 16.5, it's a 1-point difference. Maybe you think about taking the under on Lauri Markkanen. I know he's covered in 2 out of 3 against Brooklyn. I know Brooklyn's given up a top 10 most points to the position of power forward. I know his projections are slightly higher than the 16.5, but it's enticing to think about taking the under when a guy is priced up at 16.5 versus the 15.5 that every other sports book has him at, right? So I don't know, something to think about. If people are taking the under at 15.5, then maybe we should at least give some consideration to taking the under at 16.5. You guys have also mentioned Caris LeVert a number of different times, so let's talk about Caris LeVert real quick. LeVert in a little bit of a revenge situation going up against his former team, obviously the Brooklyn Nets. Once upon a time, he was a Brooklyn Net. Since then, he's been, with Indiana? Now he's with Cleveland. So LeVert's been getting around. He's at 17.5 points. You're going to see over the last 10 games, he's covered this in just 3 out of 10, which I think was the same hit rate for Darius Garland, right? But if you're asking me who would I rather take an over on, it'd probably be Darius Garland versus Caris LeVert. I just trust Garland to get more shots, to have the ball in his hands more, higher usage player, right? Yes, his points prop is 25.5 versus LeVert at 17.5, but still, I think I would trust Darius Garland and his upside a little bit more. Now, speaking of upside, over the last 10 games, Caris LeVert has shown 32-point upside. 32-point upside in his last 10 games. Most of the games, though, have been below 17.5. You can see he's averaging 14.7 over his last 10 games. The last 5 games, averaging 14 points. Against Brooklyn this season, he's played them just once. And in that game, which was at Brooklyn, he had 16 points, falling short of the 17.5. So for me, Caris LeVert is a little bit too streaky. A little bit too streaky for my tastes. We won't go back and look at the splits for Caris LeVert. If we go back to the last 30 games, this is going to include some games when he was a member of the Pacers. Just looking at the last 10, we'll just look at those real quick. At 17.5, you can see at home, 20% hit rate. Away, 20% hit rate. So he's a 20% hit rate kind of guy. Now, these away splits are going to include, again, some games from when he was a Pacer. So if we start around, let's say March 24th, you can see he's gone under in 4 out of his last 5 games. So for me, I think the under would be my lean in this situation. Caris LeVert, maybe at best, the third option in the starting lineup. I think Markkanen probably is a little bit above him in the pecking order, or equal to him. Garland obviously being the lead guy. You got Mobley ahead of probably Markkanen and LeVert. It's kind of the pecking order. Anyway, moving forward here, taking a look at Caris LeVert. He's more the shooting guard for Cleveland. We look at the Brooklyn Nets and points allowed to shooting guards in the last 7 games. They're giving up about 23.2 points per game. Now, that's not to say Caris LeVert's going to get all 23.2 of those points. So we have to keep in mind that they've got other guys on this team, too, that play shooting guard. Isaac Okoro, you could argue that he's a shooting guard, right? So that doesn't mean that he's going to get all the points. Just because Brooklyn's given up 23 points per game doesn't mean that Caris LeVert's going to get all those. Anyway, projection for Caris LeVert, they have a very favorable projection up for him at 19.7. We're seeing a point prop line of 16.5 on some sites, one site, being bet over at minus 145 odds. And then we're seeing him at 17.5 points on some of these other sites. That's where he's at on PrizePicks, is 17.5. Now, most of the sites at 17.5, people are not touching the over on this prop. There is one site where he's a slight betting favorite to go over at 17.5, minus 115 odds, and that's DraftKings. So doesn't seem like people are too enthusiastic about taking overs or unders on Caris LeVert just yet. This line, these lines, these odds, probably going to change closer to tip-off, but it's still early yet. So keep an eye on those. But my hunch, my feeling would be probably take the under or just fade Caris LeVert altogether. Any other Brooklyn Nets or Cleveland Cavaliers points props worth talking about? You guys let me know. Any other points props from this Cleveland-Brooklyn game that you guys want me to look at? King says, hit that like button. No. Smash that like button. Appreciate you. Appreciate that. We'll talk about the first half. I see a lot of you guys wanting to go first half. First half. Welch says that he took the Kevin Love points prop at 11.5 because he thinks that somebody with some playoff experience, some championship experience, some veteran presence might be necessary or needed in this game. I could see that. I could see them leaning on Kevin Love for, a little bit more minutes. Maybe if a guy like Lauri Markkanen comes out struggling, or Evan Mobley, being the young guy that he is, just returning off of a little bit of a layoff. If those guys struggle, I could see them leaning on a veteran presence like Kevin Love. I don't mind that line of thinking, that game script. You guys are thinking that it could be a steal? Well, let's take a look at it, man. Let's take a look at Kevin Love. That's what this is all about. We only got 2 games, so I'm, going to go a little bit further above and beyond as far as looking into some of these props for you guys. Let me refresh props.cash because it doesn't look like we've got a Kevin Love point prop loaded in here. Let's see what we got, though. We'll refresh. No? Well, okay, cool. There you go. He popped up at least. All right, so Kevin Love is at 11.5 points. So we're going to dial this down on props.cash. You can see at 11.5 points over the last 10 games. He's gone over in 6 out of 10, so a 60% hit rate for K Love. That's not too bad. He just had 32 points against the Milwaukee Bucks on April 10th. And again, with Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, if those guys are struggling, maybe they get in foul trouble or something like that, I could see, again, a situation where they lean on more of a stable veteran like Kevin Love. I could get down with that line of thinking. So anyway, Kevin Love at 11.5 points. He's faced Brooklyn 4 times this season. He's only gone over 11.5 points in 1 out of 4 games. Had 14 points against Brooklyn back on January 17th. So he's been hovering right around the 8 to 10 to 11 point range, averaging 10.8 points per game against Brooklyn this season. Taking a look at his splits. You guys want to talk splits? We can do the split action here for Kevin Love. This season at 11.5 points, got a 57% hit rate overall. Let's take a look at his away splits. He's covered this in a 53% hit rate. At home, he is at a 61% hit rate. So he actually scores the ball a little bit better at home than he does on the road. So he's more of a home splits guy. Again, he's going to be playing on the road tonight. So a little bit of a knock, I guess you could say, against Kevin Love. As far as the Brooklyn defense, they do rank 10th against opposing power forwards. We talked about all the rest of these defensive metrics. So let's go take a look at both power forward and center spot, because I think he does fill in at the 5 from time to time. Brooklyn, again, giving up over 25 points per game to opposing power forwards. So if he's ever in there alongside Evan Mobley, more likely he'll probably be like the power forward. But these guys are really interchangeable. Him, Markkanen, and Mobley, kind of all interchangeable. We'll also look at the center spot. Brooklyn against centers, last 7 games, giving up just 17.3 points per game. That is the first fewest, the most difficult matchup for centers when it comes to points. So he's not going to have it easy, but that doesn't mean he can't come in, do his thing. He can knock down some threes and stuff like that. We know he can get his points pretty quick. So there you go. A little bit of love for Kevin Love. Let's talk about one of these big Nets stars. You guys are wanting to talk about KD. Let's look at Kevin Durant. Obviously, sky's the limit for Kevin Durant. Anytime he takes the floor, this guy could go for 40, 50, whenever he wants, really, whenever he wants. But let's just take a look at the matchup. Let's take a look at what he's done against Cleveland this season. KD, you're going to find him at 31.5 over on PrizePicks. So let's dial him in here on props.cash. We bump him down to 31.5. You can see over the last 10 games for Kevin Durant, he's gone over 31.5 in 50% of his games. So it's kind of, 50-50 type of situation. Let's take a look and see what he's done against Cleveland this season. He's faced Cleveland on 3 separate occasions. He has gone under against Cleveland in 2 out of 3. the last time he met Cleveland just 4 days ago, had 36 points against them. So if you want to take an over on anybody, I would say for a points prop, Kevin Durant would probably be one of the guys at the front of the line just because of his tremendous upside. We know that he could pop off, man. 36 points against Cleveland. He did it the last time these two teams met. So just for reference, at 31.5 points according to props.cash, his odds of going over minus 130. So he'd be a betting favorite to go over at 31.5. Let's take a look at the splits here for Kevin Durant. Again, they're going to be playing in Brooklyn tonight. So going to the home splits first, he's got a 35% hit rate at home this season. On the road, a 38% hit rate. So not a significant difference between home and road as far as points scored by Kevin Durant. Very insignificant. So the power forward spot going up against Cleveland tonight. Cavaliers last 7 games, they're giving up over 22 points per game. But for me, even if a matchup looks difficult on paper, a guy of Kevin Durant's caliber, his skill, his ability, he can overcome what looks like a difficult matchup, right? He can get his against even the worst matchups on paper. So I'm not too worried about, the DVP in this situation for Kevin Durant. As far as a points projection for him, though, we are seeing him at 32.7 projected points. Also worth noting, there's 4 different sports books that I'm able to reference. Now, these books have him at 2 different points prop lines. We're seeing him at 31.5 on some books, which is where he's at on PrizePicks at the moment. But we're also seeing him as high as 32.5 points, meaning they think a range of maybe 32 to 33 points is a possible outcome for Kevin Durant. So the fact that we're seeing him at 32.5 on some of these books means that there's about a 1 point value here at 31.5 on PrizePicks. I want to refresh because prop lines are always changing, always moving. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Well, there goes the value, right? We had him at 31.5 and he slipped away. Now he's at 32.5. Well, hopefully some of you guys got him at 31.5. 32.5, the betting public, they are taking the under here. Minus 125 odds to go under at 32.5. So again, when we go back to props.cash and we change this to 32.5, you can kind of see here at 32.5, 7 out of 24, 29% hit rate this season. Away, and then at home, 32.5, 32% hit rate. So, not that he can't do it. It's just going to be a little bit harder with 32.5. I like the 31.5. Heck, I was even thinking about taking the over at 31.5. But now, I don't know, man. Things always move and change. Kevin Durant. You're saying Art Clemens is saying Kevin Durant down and Kyrie Irving is up. I think they're both up, right? I mean, they're both at 32.5. Irving's at 28.5. It could, Matt, you might have a good point. They might have just bumped KD up to 32.5 because he might be out there on the ballot for this Taco Tuesday vote. That's a very good point. Could be a little bump action for Kevin Durant's points, just to go ahead and discount him later for the taco. Now, Douglas, you're saying Kyrie over KD. You'd rather have Kyrie's points. I mean, maybe at this point we do look at Kyrie's points at 28.5. I mean, he could get his too. We've seen him go for 60 against Orlando, right? I mean, it's not like Kyrie is some scrub or some kind of bum or anything. So let's talk about Kyrie. Maybe he's got a little bit more value now that Kevin Durant's been bumped up to 32.5. Over the last 10 games, Kyrie, 28.5 points, has gone over in 4 out of 10. Now he does have scoring pop, scoring upside. 43 against Memphis, 31 against Atlanta, 42 against Houston, 35 against Indiana. Now he's beat up on some teams that aren't so great. Defensively, aren't so great. Now, the last time he played Cleveland, he had just 18 points against them. Played them twice. Had 27 in one game, 18 in the other. So he went under 28.5 in both games, averaging just 22.5. It seems like he'd be due, you know what I mean? Like for a breakout type of game. It seems like he could come out of here and make a statement versus the team that drafted him back in the day. Cleveland's defense does rank 7th against opposing point guards. We talked about across the board, a lot of red. So it's going to be a difficult matchup. Not the easiest matchup in the world for Kyrie Irving. As far as the splits, we can't really look at those because they're kind of skewed. You know what I'm saying? Being that this dude wasn't able to play in home games. I mean, we'll look at him anyway, but I'm just letting you know. On the road, 43% hit rate at 28.5 points. At home, he's only played 6 games, 33% hit rate. So kind of a skewed sample size, right? Can't really lean on that too much, too heavy. As far as point guards and points allowed by the Cavaliers over the last 7 games, I'll tell you this. They do rank 5th over the last 7 games in points allowed to point guards, giving up over 26 points per game. So as far as a matchup is concerned, the Cavs are not guarding opposing point guards. They are not guarding opposing point guards very well, giving up the 5th most points per game to point guards. So the matchup is right. The talent, the usage is there for Kyrie, for him to have a good night. His projected points are at 30. At 28.5 points on 3 out of 4 sites. We're seeing some action over on DraftKings, under on BetMGM. No action at all on FanDuel. We're seeing him as low as 27.5 on a site like PointsBet too, by the way. At 27.5, they're definitely taking the over there. Minus 140 betting favorite to go over. So Kyrie, to Trevor's point, playoffs make great players play great. I agree with you. I think we're going to probably see playoff mode Kyrie Irving. So, there you go. So I think we've pretty much exhausted all of the decent looks, all of the decent options up on the PrizePicks board. I mean, we've talked about it, everyone. The only guys we really have not talked about is Andre Drummond, going up against his former team, Cleveland. Isaac Okoro briefly kind of hinted at shooting guards versus Brooklyn. Looks like a pretty decent matchup. Nick Claxton, but I don't know that I'm clicking on any of these guys' names. I think the one that was the most eye-opening for me out of all the ones that we did discuss, probably this dude. 90% hit rate at 13.5 points when he plays at home over the last 10 games. Probably the most eye-opening one for me. Again, nothing's a lock. Nothing is for sure. But we got some numbers that kind of support an overplay for Bruce Brown at 13.5 points at home, right? So that one was kind of eye-opening, enlightening. Hopefully you guys thought so too. Anyway, let's move on from this game. Let's switch it up and talk about the Clippers and T-Wolves game, because I see you guys have mentioned a number of different players. Looking at the hit rates for guys from this game, we're still talking points props. We're just switching games, still talking points props. Clippers at T-Wolves. Leading the way, surprisingly, is Ivica Zubac at 9.5 points. He's got a 60% hit rate. From there, a lot of these guys don't really have great hit rates. We got Jared Vanderbilt, Nick Batum at 50% over the last 10 games. Ant Edwards, Marcus Morris, 40%. Reggie Jackson, Patrick Beverley, D'Angelo Russell, all at 30% on their points props. Karl Anthony Towns at 27.5 points, just a 20% hit rate in the last 10. And then Paul George, 28.5 points, just a 10% hit rate. Are we going to see playoff P? Is playoff P going to show up tonight? What are you guys thinking? Trevor says playoffs make great players play great. Do we throw Paul George in that category for great players playing great? Potentially, maybe. Kevin says the biggest thing about this game is going to be figuring out the Clippers' rotations. That is a very good point, because I believe Norman Powell made his return, right? Obviously, Paul George is just a few games back in with the Clippers. So what are their rotations going to look like? It's kind of sight unseen. we really don't know what we're getting into. The Clippers, toward the end of the regular season, they started to rest some of their starters. They kind of started to spread some of their minutes out, trying to get some of their veterans and normal rotation guys some time off, right? Aaron Rodgers says playoff P is a myth. I hear you. Playoff Reggie Jackson's greater than playoff P. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Wow. We're getting started with the playoff P, the Paul George slander. All right, you guys want to talk about some of these points props? Let's do it. J.A. wants to talk about Karl Anthony Towns. He's at 26.5 points. Let's go take a look at the big cat. He should be in a pretty decent matchup today against Ivica Zubac in this Los Angeles Clippers front court. They're going to need Karl Anthony Towns to be on his A game. Now we look at the last 10 games for Karl Anthony Towns. Even at 26.5 points, he's got a pretty ugly hit rate. Just 20%. 20% hit rate at 26.5 points. The only teams that he has gone over against, surprisingly, was Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. He had 32 points against them back on April 1st. And then 28 points against Houston. But Karl Anthony Towns, maybe he was saving himself for the playoffs, or maybe he just stinks and he's not very good at basketball or scoring anyway. Just 20% hit rate. Not looking very good. Now he's going up against the Clippers, a team that he's faced 3 times this season. Again, you thought the matchup was good. When you think about Ivica Zubac, you're like, he's all right, right? Decent, average, big man at best. Karl Anthony Towns should be killing this dude, but he's not. He hasn't. He has not killed Ivica Zubac in this Clippers front court this season. 18, 20, and just 8 points in 3 matchups against the Clippers. Averaging a paltry 15.3 points in those 3 games. So the only thing left to do then, I guess, is look at the splits for Karl Anthony Towns. Maybe that will give some glimmer of hope here for what looks like a pretty ugly situation for Karl Anthony Towns. He's playing at home. So let's take a look at his home splits versus the road splits at 26.5 points. Start with the away splits, all right? 26.5 points. He has covered this in 31% of his games on the road. The home splits, not much better, just 32%. 31% on the road, 32% at home. He pretty much doesn't care if he's playing at home or on the road. He sucks at covering 26.5 points either way. This Clippers defense, kind of underrated. We're seeing a lot of their averages as far as points and field goal percentage, 3-point. Those numbers are coming down, meaning they're doing a much better job defensively today than they were 2 weeks ago. The value column here, you see these red arrows, means that everything's coming down. They're doing a better job defensively today than they were a couple weeks back. So I don't know, man. Karl Anthony Towns is really going to have to show up. He cannot afford to have 15, 19, 16 points. I mean, he's going to have a special type of game. Taking a look at the last 7 games for the Los Angeles Clippers against opposing centers. How many points are they allowing? Well, I've got the answer for you right here. They're giving up 20.6 points per game to opposing centers. You take a look at that, and that is the 7th fewest. So they're doing a good job defensively. It's not going to be a walk in the park for Karl Anthony Towns. It has not been a walk in the park for Karl Anthony Towns in their 3 previous games. Tonight may not be any different. Let's go get you a projection here for Towns. His projection, according to Action Labs, is at 29 points. That's pretty generous. That's a pretty big projection. He is at 27.5 points. His points prop line is 27.5 on 3 out of the 4 sports books out there. He is at 26.5 on 1 book. Here's what I'll tell you. At 27.5 points on DraftKings, on BetMGM, they're betting the over. On PointsBet, they're betting the under. Even more confusing is at 26.5 points, they're betting the under over on a site like FanDuel. So none of this makes any sense, is basically what I'm trying to tell you. They're betting the over on DraftKings at 27.5. They're betting the under on FanDuel at 26.5. I think this is going to be one of those props where nobody has any idea what in the hell to do with Karl Anthony Towns at 26.5 points. I don't know that I want to touch it, to be honest with you. I don't know that I want to take the over or the under on this guy. This might be one of these props where I'm just like, I'm going to fade it, man. Because we know Karl Anthony Towns, he's skilled. He's one of the top 5, maybe top 10 best big men in the league. But he's 0 for 3 against the Clippers, and he's like, 2 for 10 in his last 10 games. I mean, going over 26.5 points. I just don't feel great about it. I just don't like it. Lines are definitely sharp, Duncan. You are right about that. You are definitely right about that. I see a couple people asking about Ivica Zubac points. Ivica Zubac at 9.5 points. He's going to be starting for the Clippers. He's a point higher than his backup, Isaiah Hartenstein. So at 9.5 points, that might be a good look. Because I don't know about you, I've been attacking Karl Anthony Towns, this Minnesota Timberwolves front court, with opposing bigs for most of the regular season. They're not very good defensively. Let's just take a look, though, closer look at Ivica Zubac. Guys, if you're just getting here and you haven't hit the like button yet and you're finding anything of value, if this video is helping you out, if the live stream, these questions, this research is helping you in any kind of way, I'd appreciate you slapping that like button. Hit it up, man. Hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. Anyway, the last 10 games for Ivica Zubac at 9.5 points, a 60% hit rate. Now, he's currently riding a 6-game hit streak, going for 11, 11, 16, 13, 15, and 12. My man needs just 10 points tonight. He's been handling 9.5 points pretty easily over the last 6 games. Let's take a look at this matchup against Minnesota. He's 3 for 3 against the T-Wolves this season, going for 10, 14, and 10. So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Dude is showing great form over the last 6 games. He has shown a 100% hit rate against tonight's opponent, the Minnesota Timberwolves, averaging 11.3 points per game. So yeah, I think he's in a pretty decent spot. I could get down with what you guys are putting down here with the Ivica Zubac. He's going to be on the road tonight, so let's take a look at his splits. Is he more of a home guy or a road guy? We'll start with the home splits. 62% hit rate. That's also a really nice little hit rate. On the road, 51%. So a difference of about 11%. Not impossible. Not impossible. I mean, the 2 games that he covered, or 2 out of the 3 games that he covered against Minnesota, covered in all 3, but 2 of those games were games on the road in Minnesota where he had 10 and 14 respectively. So not too worried about the home and road splits. It's not significant enough for me to say fade it or, don't take it. I mean, when we look at the last 10 games Zubac has played on the road, 70% hit rate. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Looking at this Minnesota defense, they rank 24th in total points allowed. They're giving up more total points now than they were 2 weeks ago. 16th in field goal percentage allowed, 25th in three-pointers allowed, 13th in three-point field goal percentage allowed. They are dead last, meaning they're giving up more free throws to opposing teams than any other team in the NBA. So if there's any free throw props out there that you're liking from the Clippers side, you can consider taking the overs on those. And surprisingly, they rank 7th against opposing centers. Let's take a closer look at that. The last 7 games, the center position. Minnesota's giving up over 29 points per game to opposing centers. I don't know how they rank 7th against centers for the season. I don't know what's factored into that ranking. But over the last 7 games, they're giving up the 4th most points per game to the center spot. Ivica Zubac, 3 for 3 against Minnesota, in case you missed that. 70% hit rate in his last 10 games on the road to boot. And he's going up against a team giving up the 4th most points to centers. Seems like he's in a great spot. I don't know about you, but it seems like he's in a great spot. His projection today is 11 points. That's a healthy number. At 9.5, nobody's betting the under on this. They're either not betting it at all or they're betting the over. Minus 120, slight betting favor to go over 9.5. You guys let me know. Am I crazy for saying this? I feel more confident taking Ivica Zubac over 9.5 points than I do taking Karl Anthony Towns over 26.5 points. Am I crazy for saying that? I feel better about taking this guy over his points prop than I do the 3-point champion, the all-star, Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know. Who's with me on this? You guys taking the over on Ivica Zubac at 9.5? Or y'all fading this one too? What other points props are you guys liking from this Clippers T-Wolves game? Zoo. You guys saying I'm not crazy? I feel you. The freshman saying he's taking the over. Jonathan Bishop saying Zubac PRA could be safer. It could be. Could be. I mean, 3 for 3 against the T-Wolves, though. It doesn't get any better than 100%. It doesn't get any better than... Oh, well, it gets a little bit better. But it doesn't get a whole lot better than facing off against the teams giving up the 4th most points to opposing centers. Right? I mean, it looks good. Looks very good. You guys are asking about PG-13, a.k.a. Playoff P. Paul George. You guys are saying, well, Aaron Rodgers is saying that Playoff P is a myth. Let's just take a look at Paul George here. We don't have a whole lot of games for us to really reference since his return to the Los Angeles Clippers. How many games has he played? Exactly 5? So cool. We could just look at the last 5 games then for Paul George. So he's at 28.5 by default on props.cash, but that's where this little tool comes in handy. You bump him down to 27.5. The hit rates don't change at all. He's only covered 27.5, 28.5 in 1 out of his last 5 games. He had 34 in his first game back against Utah. Now, I don't know if they were just kind of taking it easy as far as his minutes, as far as his usage and shots and stuff like that, or if he was just struggling, but he had 22, 15, 19, and 23 in the last 4 games of the regular season. So he wasn't looking like he was, in prime shape. I think we all got hyped, though, when he came back against a tough Utah Jazz team and dropped 34, right? We were all on the playoff P, Paul George, PG-13 train. And then we were like, dang, he should have hit against Chicago. Dang, he should have hit against New Orleans. All right, Phoenix, we could give you a pass. Dang, he should have hit against Sacramento. So, I mean, he's faced some pretty easy teams here in the last 4 games. Nonetheless, he's 0 for his last 4, going over 27.5 points or 28.5, wherever you're playing your Paul George point props. As far as the Minnesota defense, we've already kind of talked about it. They rank 13th against opposing small forwards, kind of a middle of the pack average defense against small forwards. He did face Minnesota 3 times this season. I guess we can reference that. 1 for 3. Had 32 back in November against the T-Wolves, 21 and 23 in 2 other games against Minnesota, though. So just a 33% hit rate at going over 27.5. We could also take a look at his splits. Again, he was out for a long time, a couple of months or something like that. So I don't know how much faith you put into these splits numbers, but we'll look at them nonetheless. Again, Clippers are going to be on the road tonight. We'll start with the home splits at 27.5 points, a 30% hit rate this season at home. Let's see if that improves on the road. 27% hit rate on the road. So it actually got worse. His road splits are worse than his home splits. And when we're looking at these games here, he's gone under 27.5 in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. His last 8 road games, he has went under 27.5 points. So something's got to give here. Either he's going to stink it up tonight or playoff P. He's going to put on his cape and we're going to see the return of playoff P. Small forwards against the Minnesota Timberwolves over the last 7 games. They are giving up about 23.1 points per game, which kind of puts them close toward the top, maybe like top 12, top 15 in that range. So kind of an average matchup. You could see they're like middle of the pack, but closer to the top than the bottom. So not a scary matchup, but not one that we're like running towards, right? He's projected for 25.3 points tonight. That's over 2 points less than the 27.5. But I will tell you this, he's at 27.5 on 3 out of 4 sports books that I am able to reference. But he's also at 28.5 on a book like FanDuel, meaning they think 28 to 29 points could be a plausible outcome for Paul George tonight in the scoring department. At 27.5, though, we're seeing some people betting the over on DraftKings. They're betting the under on BetMGM. So this is another one of those props, kind of like Karl Anthony Towns, where it's a star, a big name, but the guy just hasn't been performing well against tonight's opponent in the last 5 games, 1 for 5. I mean, it's just another one of those props where I just don't feel great about it. Don't feel great about it, man. And when I don't feel great about it, I'm more likely to either take the under or fade. But do you really feel good about taking the under on Paul George in a playoff situation? I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it. Let's see. What other points props are you guys liking? I'm seeing Jonathan Bishop mentioning some Patrick Beverley under points. Patrick Beverley under points. Okay. He just got ejected Sunday, the last regular season game. I think he did that on purpose. I think he was ready to get a little extra rest, and so he got himself ejected. Told the ref some not nice things. Made some obscene comments, we'll just say. Got himself sent home early. A little bit of rest before the playoffs, right? So you guys are talking about going under on Patrick Beverley at 9.5 points. Yes, there's going to be that narrative of Patrick Beverley wants a Clipper. There's revenge. And I mean, look, his picture on PrizePicks, he's still wearing his Clippers jersey. We don't even have him in a Minnesota jersey yet. So it's still fresh. Still fresh. The wound is still fresh for Patrick Beverley. Let's go take a look at his points prop. You guys are saying under. At least one of you guys are saying under. The last 10 games for Patrick Beverley at 9.5 points. He has gone under in most of the games. He's only gone over in 3 games, so he's gone under in 7 games. Against today's opponent, the Clippers. Played him 4 times, went over twice, and under twice. The last time they played, he did have 11 points. Kind of some bookends here, some bookend overs here. He had 10 the first time they played, 11 the last time they played. In between that, 5 and 5. So averaging 7.8 points per game, which is less than his prop line of 9.5 by quite a bit. You guys like the splits. I like the splits. Let's take a look at the splits. Is he hitting better at home or on the road? 55% at home, 52% on the road. Not really a splits guy. Not a significant difference in his scoring at home versus away. Clippers defense, pretty tough. We've talked about that. Maybe the one weak spot is against point guards. So either he or D'Angelo Russell might be in for a good night. They rank 28th against opposing point guards. So let's go look at the point guard spot. How many points are the Clippers given up to opposing point guards in the last 7 games? 21.99. Let's call it 22. It's 22. Puts him down in the bottom 10. So it's a tough matchup for Patrick Beverley. He's not a guy that's going to score a whole lot of points anyway, or typically doesn't take a whole lot of shots. But maybe that revenge narrative kicks in and he's, feeling a little bit more froggy and gets more shots up tonight against his former team. His projected points are 11.4. Out on the sports books, he's up on 2 sites at 9.5, on 2 other sites at 10.5. So we're getting the value number at 9.5 here on PrizePicks. At 10.5, they're saying it's an easy under here. Minus 130, minus 135. At 9.5, they are betting the over, though, at minus 128 and minus 125. So the betting public's liking the over at 9.5, but liking the under at 10.5. So you guys are saying you're taking the over on 0.5 ejections for Patrick Beverley tonight? That's crazy. Kyle says there's 150 people watching, yet just 48 likes. Come on, people. CJ is breaking this down for you all. Show the love. Show the love. That's okay, man. Like I said in the past, you guys, you show your support with the likes. I'll keep showing up and doing these breakdowns for you. But, if you're not feeling it, then don't hit the like button. Only do it if you really mean it. What other points props are we guys liking? What other points props from this game? Clippers, T-Wolves. Is there anybody else that's standing out to you? We talked about Zubac. I also mentioned Hartenstein. We know that centers against Minnesota. Good look. Good look. So maybe Hartenstein comes in off the bench. If Zubac gets into some foul trouble, which could be a possibility, if Karl-Anthony Towns is playing aggressive like he should be, maybe Zubac can't keep his hands to himself, and he ends up getting into some foul trouble. Then maybe Hartenstein finds his way out onto the court for some extra minutes. So maybe he's worth an over. RD says, there's no love button, so I can't settle for a measly like. I feel you. I feel you. No other points props from this game. Not really seeing any other any love for any other points props. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the assist category. You guys let me know which assist props you're liking. I think we've really dug deep on these points. Probably my favorite way to play NBA props, by the way, is points. I think it's maybe the most predictable or most consistent. What about assists, though? Let's start with the Cleveland-Brooklyn game. Let's go back to that one, looking at the assist hit rates there over the last 10 games. It's pretty ugly, y'all. Pretty ugly. Leading the way, Bruce Brown, Darius Garland at a 50% hit rate. From there, Okoro, Durant, Irving, LeVert, and Curry, all at 40% or less. So you're going to look at these hit rates and you're going to be like, damn, that's ugly. But you have to remember that these guys will probably get more minutes, so they're expecting there to be more point output, more assist output, more rebounds output, because the rotations will be shortened. They won't be playing as many guys off the bench as many minutes unless somebody gets into foul trouble or gets injured or something. So you're going to look at some of these hit rates and be like, dang, why are they so low? Well, they've inflated or increased the props for a lot of these guys because they expect them to get more minutes, being that it's now the playoffs. So let's start with the Cleveland-Brooklyn game. Duncan, you're wanting to jump out here and take the under on Kevin Durant at 7.5 assists. Okay, let's look at it. K Dizzle, Easy Money Sniper, Slim Reaper, whatever you want to call him. My man has dropped some dimes over the last 10 games. I mean, he's shown 8, 11, 11, and 16 assist upside. 16 assist upside, right? He's at 7.5. It does seem a little beefy, a little high when I first look at it. Got to be honest with you. When I think of KD, I'm like, points, right? Points, maybe some rebounds. But assists at 7.5 does seem a little bit steep. I get a little bit of sticker shock when I first see 7.5 assists for Kevin Durant. That's what I'm trying to say. But the last 5 games, 8.4 assists. Last 10 games, 7.8. But this 7.8 is deceiving. Like I said, 16, 11, and 11 will really beef up or inflate a player's assist numbers. Looking at his matchups against Cleveland this season, he's played them 3 times. He's only went over 7.5 assists in 1 game. It was back in November with 9 dimes. Otherwise, 3 and 5. So he's got a floor of 3 assists. He's got a ceiling of 9. So he's going to have a ceiling type of game tonight against Cleveland, where he's finding 8, 9 assists in order for him to cover this 7.5. Important to note, 5.7 assists per game this season in those 3 matchups against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it's not a great average either. Moving it on down here, Cleveland ranks 11th in total assists allowed to opposing teams. Pretty much maintaining 24.1 assists per game. That hasn't really changed over the last 2 weeks. Now, KD spends most of his time at the power forward spot, but we'll look at both power forwards and small forwards because he's kind of a hybrid. We'll call him a hybrid. Cleveland in the last 7 games has given up about 4 assists per game to opposing power forwards. No, that number isn't very high, but it's important to note that it is kind of high ranking. The number itself, 4 assists, not very sexy, but you can see where they rank just outside the top 10. Let's also look at the small forward spot. Cleveland giving up about 4.2 assists. Now that number and that ranking is a lot lower, down toward the bottom. So they're not giving up quite as many assists. They rank worse against small forwards than they do power forwards. So it's not the greatest matchup in the world for Kevin Durant. They're giving up 4 per game to power forwards. My man needs to find twice that amount to hit the over. I think we're asking kind of a lot here out of Kevin Durant at 8 assists. He needs 8 to hit the over. So I'm personally starting to feel like the under's the way to go here. We got a projection of 6.9. Even if we bumped it up and called it an even 7, 7's less than 7.5, we're seeing a lot of juice coming in on the under on Kevin Durant. Minus 155, minus 140. 3 different books. 3 different books where people are hammering the under right now at 7.5 assists. And I kind of agree. That the under would be my lean on KD. So I'm looking for KD to get more involved in scoring tonight. Yes, he can pop off for 11 assists, 13 assists like we've seen in the last 10 games, but I'm kind of feeling the under here on Kevin Durant at 7.5. What other assist props are you guys liking here? I'm seeing Anthony Edwards being mentioned. We'll get to that one in a minute. Remind me, though. Let's stay locked in on this Cleveland-Brooklyn game and take care of these real quick. It's Drippy Sean is liking some Darius Garland assists. Are you liking him over or under? RD says that Garland's assist has killed him the last time that they played the Nets. Let's start with Darius Garland here. Let's go 8.5 assists on Garland. Take a quick look at him. We talked about his points a little while ago at 25.5. It's a big number. He needs 26 points. So maybe we look at his assists as the better way to play him. The hit rate's at 8.5. Not too shabby. 50%. 50%. But this is another guy who's shown 10, 12, 13 assist upside in the last 10 games. But it's definitely become a bit more shaky here, right? A little bit more volatile up and down. And really, we might have Karis LeVert to blame for this. It seems like ever since LeVert has entered the starting lineup, things have been a little bit crazy for Darius Garland. I mean, at one point, his assist props were 9.5, I think even 10.5 at one point. But they've come down to 8.5, and it looks a little bit more attractive at 8.5. When we take a look at his matchups against Brooklyn, played them 4 times, has went over in 2 and under in the other 2. He's had a low of 3 assists, which was the most recent matchup, April 8th. So was that just a bad game, or is that a sign of things to come for Darius Garland? Is he going to be more scoring focused and less of the assist man, the setup guy? Had 11 in Brooklyn back in November. Well, I'm sorry, that was in Cleveland. Had 11 and 12 against Brooklyn in Cleveland back in November and January. So the 2 games that he's played at Brooklyn, now this is kind of interesting because he's going to be in Brooklyn tonight. He's went under by quite a bit. 6 against Brooklyn, November 17th. 3 against Brooklyn, at Brooklyn. So he's went under by quite a bit. 6 and 3. That's a 4.5 assist average in games played at Brooklyn. So he's going to be at Brooklyn again tonight. So not very good road splits against this team. Just throwing it out there. Now, Brooklyn, they ranked 9th in total assists allowed, giving up less than 24 assists per game. So that's a pretty tough matchup. We go to the point guard position. Look at the last 7 games here. How many assists are the Brooklyn Nets giving up to opposing point guards? We go all the way down to the bottom. Guys, they're giving up the third fewest in the last 7 games, just 6.3 assists per game. So he's 0 for 2 against Brooklyn in games played in Brooklyn. The Nets over the last 7 games giving up the third fewest assists per game to opposing point guards at just 6.3. So it's a very tough matchup. Let's see if there's another case here where, we might be looking at taking a under. Let's pull up a projection for Garland. So they have him projected to go over 8.5 assists at 9.8. Definitely cross-reference this projection with NumberFire, RotoWire, Betting Pros. Those are some free sites. At 8.5 assists, the betting public is taking the over here. Minus 120, minus 135. So they're leaning toward taking the over from what it looks like. Are you guys wanting to take the over or under on Darius Garland at 8.5 assists based on what I've shown you here? Douglas is saying taking the under on his assists. He's going more score heavy. All right. Koyo's saying I'm fading Garland. Benny, you're asking, RD, you're asking about, can we see like what his hit rates are? I'm assuming that's what you're asking. Hit rates for the season in games in which they've lost by 10 or more points. He's got a 40% hit rate in games in which Cleveland has lost by 10 or more. Because the spread on this game is 9.5 right now, right? So there's a real chance that they could end up losing by 10 or more points. So just a 40% hit rate. Now against Brooklyn, both of the games that he went under against Brooklyn, they lost by 10 or more points. So he went under 8.5 assists in both games versus Brooklyn, in Brooklyn, and they lost by 10 or more in both of those games. So there you go. There's a very strong case, I think, to be made for Darius Garland under 8.5 assists based on what we're seeing. Let's see. What other assist props are you guys liking? Any other ones from this Cleveland-Brooklyn game? You guys are saying Caris LeVert. Where's his assist at? 4.5? Let's take a look. Let's look at Caris LeVert. LeVert's at 4.5 assists. We're going to look at his last 10 games, 40% hit rate. There's been a lot of death by hook. And what I mean by that is he had 4 against Brooklyn. So at 4.5, that 0.5 is the hook. If you took the over, it's death by hook. Against Orlando, he had 4, death by hook. Against Dallas, death by hook. I mean, he hits those assist props in those games. All of a sudden, it goes from a 40% hit rate to a 70% hit rate in the last 10. But close doesn't cut it. The truth of the matter is he's just 4 for 10 or 40%. Now, the last 5 games, he's coming a lot closer. 60% hit rate. Had a couple of games where, again, he finished with just 4. So if he needed 5, well, you wouldn't have hit in those games, all right? You wouldn't have gotten it done. But he's averaging 5.4 assists. Important to note. Against Brooklyn this season, he's played them just once in that game. Had 4 assists. Fell short. Talked about the Nets, ranked 9th in assists allowed, 28th against opposing shooting guards. So let's go look at the shooting guard spot, go to the assist category, and see how many assists that the Brooklyn Nets are giving up. They are dead last, gang. Last 7 games, they are dead last. They're giving up less than 3 assists per game to shooting guards in the last 7 games. That is the most difficult matchup for a guy like Caris LeVert, who needs 5 assists. They're giving up less than 3. He needs 5. So not looking good. Not looking good at all. I can see why Brooklyn's, projecting to beat them by 10 or more points. His projected assists are 5, but at 4.5 assists, the betting public is smashing the under, minus 160 on DraftKings, on BetMGM, minus 135 on PointsBet. That is a lot of juice coming in on the under for Karis LeVert. So, Benny says, why do we trust Brooklyn to win by 10 plus when they're the worst home covering team in the NBA? I'm not saying they're going to do it. Listen, if I wish I could predict blowouts. That would help me. Oh, that would help me so much. Based on what the Vegas lines are set at, they are 9.5 point favorites at home. 2 games in which Cleveland has visited Brooklyn this season, they have beaten Cleveland by 10 or more points. So there's a little bit of historical value or context that says it's a real possibility that they end up beating Cleveland by 10 or more. Cleveland, to close out the regular season, they were not very good. They were not looking like a good team. They did get Evan Mobley back. Maybe things get a little bit more competitive with Mobley in there, but I would not be surprised if Brooklyn beat them by 10 or more. I'm just saying. All right. Somebody mentioned some of the. I think that's about it, right? For this game, as far as assists go. Someone mentioned Anthony Edwards' assists, but he's not up on the PrizePicks board. What other assist props are you guys liking? I know this guy right here has been hitting at a pretty decent hit rate. Since Paul George came back, Reggie Jackson's assists at like 4.5 have been pretty good. He's been hitting the over. But yeah, let's talk about Reggie Jackson. We'll start with him. I could be wrong, but I think Reggie Jackson at 4.5, 5 assists over the last few games, last 5 specifically, with Paul George making his return to the lineup. So he had 5, 7, and 10. And then these last 2 games, he had 2 and 1. Let's just check his minutes out. Yeah, so his minutes were definitely down. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at like the last few regular season games, especially with the Clippers. Ty Lue was getting his guys some minutes, some rest rather. Less minutes, fewer minutes. So he played less than 30 minutes in this game against Phoenix, 22.5 against Sacramento. So yeah, naturally his assists would be down. If he gets 37, 39 minutes tonight, even like 36 or more, let's call it, if he gets 36 or more minutes, then I think he's got a real shot at least 5 assists. These 2 games here, we could kind of throw those out. Less than 30 minutes, shoot, under 23 minutes in that game. But you can see when he gets 33 plus minutes, since Paul George is back, I mean, his assist numbers have been off the charts, 5, 7, and 10 in those games. Hey, Tony says we got over 100 likes. Thank you, man. Appreciate all of you guys. For real, for real. Appreciate that. I'm glad we were able to break 100 likes once again. But anyway, back to Reggie Jackson. Yeah, so if he gets 33, 36 type of minutes tonight, then I think he is a good over, even at 5 assists. Maybe we get a push like against Utah here. We ended up with 5, but he had 7 against Chicago, 10 against New Orleans. This season against Minnesota, a lot of these games in the last 3 were without Paul George, where he was more of a scorer and less of a facilitator. But I don't mind Reggie Jackson here at 5 assists. I think it's a pretty decent spot. So let's take a look at this point guard spot. We'll go to the assist category. Minnesota's giving up 11.7 assists per game, the 3rd most in the last 7 games to opposing point guards. The 3rd best matchup for Reggie Jackson tonight. So I would be leaning toward the over at 5 assists. Matchup's great. We've seen in games with Paul George in the lineup where he's gotten 33, 36 minutes or more. He's covered 5 or more in 3 out of 3. So I like the matchup. As long as the minutes are there, I think I like the over on Reggie Jackson. He's projected for 5.8 assists. At 4.5, he is pretty juiced up. Minus 150 and minus 145. So PrizePicks went ahead and did the right thing by bumping him up to 5. So I'm leaning toward the over on Reggie. Again, could be a tie, but we have seen him with the potential to go for 7, 10. And I think tonight in this matchup, he's got that type of upside again tonight, 7 or 10. He could get up there. So I'm liking that. Reggie Jackson. Let's refresh the PrizePicks board because lines are always moving. By the way, we talked about it. The first taco of the day is up. It's Shane Bieber, who has been discounted from 6 strikeouts down to 5 going up against the Cincinnati Reds. Some of you guys might be wondering, should I be taking Shane Bieber? Let's take a look. I'll get you a projection on this real quick. He's projected for 7.9 strikeouts. So let's call it 8 strikeouts. And at 5.5 strikeouts, he is a minus 155 betting favorite to go over 5.5. Over 5.5 meaning 6 or more Ks. So yes, I think this taco should be taken by you. Based on the projections, based on the discount, I think there's good value. Good value on this taco. Remember, tacos are not a lock. They are not a guarantee free square or anything like that. So nothing's promised, Nothing's promised. Anyway, back to NBA. I think we've talked about enough assists, unless there's any other ones from the Clippers Minnesota game that you guys are liking. PG, 6 assists. You could go there. Probably like Reggie a little bit more. But let's just take a look at Paul George as well. PG, 5 games. Okay, 5 recent games since returning back to the lineup. We got to bump him up to 6. When we bump him up to 6, he's gone for 6 or more in 3 out of his last 5 games. Showing upside of 7, 12 assists against Sacramento. Against Minnesota this season, at 6 assists, he's hit 6 or better in 2 out of 3 games. I think they're going to need him to score a little bit more. So I'm kind of more leaning on Reggie Jackson over 5 assists than Paul George. But if you want to go Paul George, it's looking decent so far. Small forwards against the Minnesota Timberwolves last 7 games. T-Wolves, how many assists are they giving up? They're giving up about 4.4. Paul George needs at least 6. Hoping for 7, but he needs at least 6 to tie. So the matchup is definitely a better one for Reggie Jackson at the point guard position. Again, Minnesota giving up over 11, nearly 12 assists per game. He needs 5 or more. And technically he's 3 for 3 when he gets, 33 plus minutes with Paul George in the lineup in the last few games. So I like the matchup for Reggie a little bit better, but I don't think it's impossible for Paul George to find 6 assists either. So a projection for Paul George, 6.1. He's at 6, projected for 6.1. At 6.5 assists on all your sports books, he's a big betting favorite, minus 155, minus 160 to go under 6.5. At 5.5, he is a betting favorite to go over, minus 135 to go over 5.5. So between 6.5 and 5.5 lies 6 assists. PrizePicks splitting the difference, taking the middle number. And if you take this number, just know that it could end up in an tie or a push. Trevor says, missed most of this, but you got over 99.5 likes. Woo! Shout out to you guys for making that happen. I don't see any Anthony Edwards assist props up on the board, but what I'll do for you Anthony Edwards lovers out there, I got him projected for 4.3 assists. He's at 4.5 out on your favorite sports books, but at 4.5, minus 140, minus 160 betting favorite to go under 4.5. So if we get him up on PrizePicks, I'm saying that he'll probably come up at 4 assists. I think he would be up at be up on the PrizePicks board at 4 assists if we got him up there, but I don't know. KD's going to be the winning taco? Watch. It's going to be Kevin Durant points. It's going to be Kevin Durant points because he got bumped from 31.5 up to 32.5. They're going to discount it from the 32.5. We wish he would have been a 31.5 discount, but they bumped him up to 32.5. Watch, it'll be Kevin Durant's points. And it'll be sweet. If we get him at like 29.5, it'll be sweet. I'll probably take the over if he's at like a 29.5 taco. I'll probably take the over on that. But can't help but to think, man, I wish we would have discounted the 31.5, but he did get bumped up on PrizePicks from 31.5 to 32.5. And so now he'll probably be discounted from 32.5. But, that's the way it is. Anyway, let's move on from this assist props. You guys got any rebound props that you want to talk about? Time is just flying by. Remember the last KD taco? I went through extensive therapy trying to forget the last time KD was a taco on PrizePicks. Trevor, I'm going back to therapy now because you brought it back up, brother. You opened up a wound that I thought was healed. But now it's back to therapy for me because the last time Kevin Durant was a taco, not only did he sell, but then he laughed at us basically. He tweeted something out and basically mocked us. He mocked us pretty bad. Yeah. Screw you, Kevin Durant. If he's the taco tonight, I hope he comes through for us. Let's talk about some rebound props. We'll start with Cleveland and Brooklyn, the top rebound hitters over the last 10 games. Kevin Durant, 7.5 rebounds, 60%. We've got a few guys hitting it 50%, including the likes of Andre Drummond, Bruce Brown, Karis LeVert, and Seth Curry. From there, a number of different guys hitting it 40%. Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, Nick Claxton, and Darius Garland. And then a couple of bottom feeders when it comes to rebounds. Isaac Okoro, Kyrie, Irving at 30%. Oh, it's the best cam spot. It's back again. Hanging out in our live stream. Holy smokes. Can I deal with this? Let me see if there's a way I can deal with this real quick. Let me see if I can make this happen. Make this thing go the hell away. Hold on, gang. We're going to make it happen. Let's go ahead and click that. Dang, they are active up in here this morning. Don't click on that bullshit. All right? Don't click on it. I'm telling you. You don't want to do it. It'll ruin your life. It'll ruin your life. There we go. Get rid of them. All right, rebound props. Now that we got rid of the porn bots. Andre Drummond rebounds. Collect grails. Let's do it. Let's start with Andre Drummond. He's at 11.5. He's going up against the team that he spent a brief period of time with, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Big Andre Drummond. He's been a pretty nice pickup, man. I'm starting to think that the Brooklyn Nets won that trade, man. Seeing James Harden the way that he's been looking, starting to think that Brooklyn won that trade, guys. And I haven't even seen Ben Simmons take the court yet for Brooklyn, but I'm starting to think they won that trade. I mean, just Seth Curry and Andre Drummond alone have really been nice pickups for Brooklyn. Andre Drummond at 11.5 rebounds over the last 10 games, 50% hit rate. In that last 10-game span, he does have a game against Cleveland back on April 8th where he pulled in 12 boards. He hit the over. He's only played Cleveland once, had 12 rebounds, as I just mentioned. Scrolling on down here, the Cavaliers without Jared Allen still, so it'll be Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley trying to keep Andre Drummond off the glass. Good luck. They rank 6th this season in rebounds allowed, 20th in offensive, and 3rd in defensive rebounds allowed. They will most likely have their hands full with Andre the giant. The Cleveland Cavaliers giving up about 16 to 17 rebounds per game to opposing centers over the last 7 games. You can see where that ranks them right around the top 10 most rebounds given up in that 7-game span. And then last but not least, Drummond. Projected for 11.1 rebounds. That's pretty close to 11.5. You know, if that was like 9.1 rebounds, I'd say we need to be concerned. But 11.1 is close enough for me to be like, okay. If we're really liking this prop, we can feel all right about taking the over. The betting public taking the over, minus 120. Betting favorite to go over 11.5 board. So it looks like a pretty good matchup. He hit in his only matchup against Cleveland, which was just 4 days ago with 12 boards. So it might be a little bit of a sweat, but nonetheless, I think Andre Drummond should be in a pretty decent spot. What other rebound props are you liking from this game? Cleveland, Brooklyn. Any others that are catching your eye that you want to take the over on? I mean, do we trust Evan Mobley at 9.5 boards? That's right. That's when you know you've made it. When the porn bots show up, you've made it on YouTube. Kevin Love, Darnell, you're liking some K Love off the bench. I think he's going to come off the bench, right? He's at 6.5 rebounds. Let's look at Kevin Love real quick. Let's look at Kevin Love here. Last 10 games, 6.5 rebounds, a 50% hit rate. Worth noting, though, the last 5 games for him at 6.5 rebounds. He's covered in 3 straight games, posting 13, 9, and 10 boards, respectively. In that last 3-game span, he had 9 boards against today's opponent, the Brooklyn Nets. Now, against Brooklyn this season, he's played them 4 times. He has gone over 6.5 rebounds in 3 out of 4 contests. So a 75% hit rate, not too shabby. You'd have to go back and look and see if like Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, if any of those guys were out, because I think they were out toward the end of last year. Some players were out for Cleveland. But that's not too bad, right? At 6.5 boards, 75% hit rate against today's opponent, the Brooklyn Nets. I think it's worth a look. Now this season, at 6.5 boards without Jared Allen in the mix, he's covered in 68% of his games. So he played 2 games against Brooklyn without Jared Allen, had 9 boards. Both of those games were in Brooklyn. Both of those games were games in which Brooklyn won by 10 or more points. We already know that from our previous research. So Kevin Love, man, 2 for 2 against Brooklyn in Brooklyn. 2 for 2 against Brooklyn in games in which the Nets have won by 10 or more points, which appears to be sort of the setup, the scenario tonight. So I don't mind it. I think it looks like a pretty decent look. Last 10 games without Jared Allen, the 50% hit rate. Brooklyn's defense, 16th in total rebounds allowed, 27th in offensive, 6th in defensive rebounds allowed. We're going to look at both center and power forward spots against this Brooklyn squad. The center position, we'll start there. Brooklyn giving up about 12.7 boards per game to opposing centers. In the last 7 games, that is the 5th fewest. In the last 7 games, that is the 5th fewest rebounds allowed. So tough matchup. Power forward spot, Brooklyn giving up a lot more rebounds to the 4 than they are the 5. So your guys like Kevin Love, maybe Lauri Markkanen benefits from this, but they're giving up close to 13 rebounds per game, the 2nd most in the last 7 games. So if you're a power forward, your chances of hitting the over on your rebound props a little bit better than if you're a center, I would say. Last but not least, a projection for Kevin Love, 7.7 rebounds at 6.5 boards, minus 170. Minus 170 over 6.5 rebounds. That is extreme juice. Heavy odds to go over 6.5. Hard to ignore that. I think you should probably consider taking it, because if it doesn't get bumped to 7, then I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised. In fact, you know what? Let's do it. Don't know if it's going to work out or not. We're going to do a cross sport. I think 20 is the most you can put on a taco these days. Let's go Kevin Love, Shane Bieber, 2-pick power play for $20, which is the max you could put on a taco. Let's see what happens, right? I mean, I'll take my chances. Guy's 2 for 2 against Brooklyn at Brooklyn this season. He's a minus 170 betting favorite over 6.5. I think he plays more minutes, being that he's a vet. They might need his veteran leadership out on the floor. And then, we'll take the Bieber taco. He looks like he's in a good spot. We'll call it the Cleveland Steamer. That's what I call that 2-pick entry. Shane Bieber, Cleveland, Kevin Love, another Cleveland guy. We'll call it the Cleveland Steamer. 2-pick power play. Boom. We locked it in. We'll see what happens with that. The old Cleveland Steamer. All right. What other props, rebound props, you guys liking? Let's switch it up. Let's go to the other game. You guys are talking about Paul George. PG. 7.5 rebounds. You're liking the over on Paul George. Let's figure it out together. I think you're liking the over. I don't know. Maybe you're liking the under. At 7.5 rebounds, let's just look at the last 5 games. Last 5 games for him, he has gone 2 for 5. Over 7.5 boards in 2 out of 5. That's a 40% hit rate. The last 2 games specifically, 9 against Phoenix, 8 against Sacramento were the games that he has went over. Averaging 5.6 rebounds in that 5-game span. Against Minnesota this season, he has faced them 3 times, as we talked about before. He's covered his rebound prop in 2 out of 3 games versus them. Had 11 big boards, 9 in his other one. So he does a pretty good job at rebounding the basketball against Minnesota from what it looks like, from what it seems. And why wouldn't he? Minnesota's defense, man. They're giving up the 23rd most rebounds allowed, 24th offensive rebounds allowed, 21st in defensive rebounds allowed. So they're green in all defensive metrics. Now, Paul George probably playing the small forward spot. The Minnesota Timberwolves last 7 games are giving up about 7.1 rebounds per game, which is slightly less than the 7.5. Paul George is going to need to have a special night on the glass from what it looks like here, right? He needs 8. They're giving up 7.1 to small forwards. Now, that's not 7.1 to starting small forwards, but we know that Paul George will get the lion's share of the minutes at the small forward position. He's just going to have a very, I would say, an above average type of rebound night against Minnesota for him to hit the over. Not impossible, just difficult. He's projected for 7.1 rebounds according to the action projection tools provided by Fantasy Labs. And at 7.5 boards on 2 books, he's a big betting favorite to go under. Minus 155 type of juice on the under at 7.5. But we're also seeing minus 150 type juice on the over at 6.5. So this looks like it's really starting to set up for a 7 rebound type of night for Paul George. They love the over at 6.5. They love the under at 7.5. So right in the middle is 7 boards. So you'd probably want to lean toward the under if you're going to be riding with the public. Jojo Rabbit's taking the Cleveland Steamer special. Let's do it. Let's do it. T-Bone. You're liking some Mobley under rebounds? I think I could get with that, man. He's at 9.5. We already talked about the matchup being tough, right? Tough matchup against Andre Drummond and this Brooklyn Nets squad. Brooklyn's given up just 12.7 boards to centers in the last 7 games. That is the 5th fewest. 5th fewest. So, yeah, young Mobley here. Young Mobley might have his hands full against Andre Drummond. At 9.5 rebounds, 40% hit rate in the last 10 games. Against Brooklyn this season, he's faced them twice. He is 0 for 2, getting 6.5 rebounds on average in those 2 meetings. So he had 6 in January, 7 in their most recent matchup at Brooklyn. 0 for 2. Projection for Mobley, 8.8. That's a lot lower than the 10 rebounds that he needs to hit the over. So I think I'm still leaning toward the under on Mobley. I think I'm rocking with you. I think I'm rocking with the under, T-Bone. He is a betting favorite at 9.5 rebounds to go over at minus 120. I don't know if I'm buying that, man. I don't know if I'm buying that. At 8.5 rebounds, a big betting favorite at minus 160 to go over. So the fact that PointsBet has him up at 8.5 boards means that they must think, their lines makers must think that 8 to 9 rebounds is a possible outcome for Mobley. So, yeah, he's going to have a really special night on the glass to hit the over at 9.5 boards. R. Clemens, who the heck is Quan? Over 1.5B? I don't know what that means, bruh. Who is Quan? Quan Alexander? I don't know who Quan is, man. KWAN? I don't know who that. I don't even know what that. What is over 1.5? Over 1.5 billion? Gotta let me know what that means, bro. Oh, are we talking baseball? Oh, we're talking baseball. My bad. You got me all mixed up, brother. I thought we were talking basketball. That is very random. Threw me off for sure. I'm like, who is Quan? Kwame Brown? Are we talking about Kwame Brown? No, he's out of the league. Anyways, any other rebound props that you guys are liking? Let me know. But I think, I don't know, unless you guys have anybody else that you want to talk about. We're damn near 2 hours in. Let's just move on. PRA. Hit me with the PRA props, guys. We're going to buzz through these last few and get up out of here. Cleveland, Brooklyn, or Minnesota, Clippers. PRA, we're talking PRA for any of them. Zubac, PRA. All right, let's go with that one. Lightning round. Let's buzz through these. My dog wants to start barking all of a sudden. He was starting to get a little restless in there. He's like, man, I miss my owner. Where's my human at? Your human's in here shooting this damn YouTube live stream. He'd appreciate it if you'd be quiet, Pooch. Ivica Zubac at 19.5 PRA. We got to bump him up here because by default he's at 18.5 on props.cash. So at 19.5, he's covered the over in his last 10 games in 6 out of 10. Now, if we look at just the last 6 games, he's gone over in 5 out of 6. And he's riding a 4-game hit streak, 31, 25, 29, and 25. Now, against Minnesota this season, at 19.5 PRA, he's hit the over in 2 out of 3 games, or a 67% hit rate. So again, we've been taking big guys, or at least I have, against the Minnesota Timberwolves, against Karl Anthony Towns in a lot of games this season, and it tends to work out more often than not. Now, Minnesota's defense, they're giving up 24 points allowed, 23rd rebounds allowed, and the 27th assists allowed to opposing teams this season. So things are looking pretty good there. Last 7 games, center position. Let's go find Minnesota. They're giving up about 30 points per game, over 18 rebounds. So that's already 48 PRA. And then we sprinkle in 4 assists on top of that. That's 52. 52 PRA allowed. He needs 20. So I think he's in a really good spot here. If you wanted to take Zubac for points, I think we really like that. If you wanted to take him for PRA, I think that's also a good look as well. I am a little bit concerned about Zubac and him getting into some potential foul trouble. That's the only concern with Zubac today. Otherwise, the matchup looks spicy. At 19.5 PRA, he is being bet under. Minus 125, minus 120 to go under 19.5. As far as his projections go, he is projected for 21.7 PRA. I like the projection. I don't think that I agree with the betting public at 19.5, but for me, Zubac, he's a decent fantasy points play too. I kind of like his fantasy points maybe a little bit more than PRA, because with fantasy points, he can get those steals and blocks, and he does a pretty good job of getting a couple steals and blocks. Today, it looks like he's projected for 1.7 steals or blocks. So if he gets 2 steals or blocks, I think he's well on his way to hitting the over on his fantasy score as well. So if you don't want to play the PRA, you could take the steals and blocks for Ivica Zubac, and I think that's a fine option as well. But, just circling back real quick on his points, because we talked about those before. I think, he's 3 for 3 at covering his points against Minnesota. So if you wanted to take his points at 9.5, he's actually got a slightly higher hit rate on his points than he does his PRA. But anyway, what other props are we talking about here for PRA that you guys are liking? Anything else standing out to you? Otherwise, I'm going to jump off here and go let this dog out. Who let the dogs out? Anthony, I've played a lot of first half Ivica Zubac fantasy points. So again, if he gets a steal or a block, which he's pretty good at, then I like the fantasy points. What's he at today for first half fantasy? It's a little easier to find data for, I think, the first half fantasy than it is first half PRA. I think you could probably use StatMuse for both, but 15 fantasy score. That's not too shabby. That's not too uncomfortable. I mean, he's covered his first half fantasy of 15 in 4 straight games. So I think he's got, a real shot at doing that. Do they have first half PRA game logs up, I wonder? Well, they do. So he's 4 for 4 on first half fantasy, 4 for 4 on PRA. So you take the one that you like better out of those. You guys are still dropping some PRA bombs on me. What else are you guys liking? T-Bone, you're liking the under on Patrick Beverley's PRA at 17.5. Let's go take a look at that. Patrick Beverley, PRA. Again, I'm using props.cash for the majority of my research. They pretty much have you covered for everything except for like fantasy points. They don't do that type of thing, but Pat Beverley's at 17.5 PRA. You're going to have to bump him down to 17.5 using props.cash. At 17.5, he's a 50% hitter. So, it's a coin flip type of situation. The last 5 games, he's just at 40%, even at 17.5. And then against the Clippers this season, at 17.5, he's gone over in 2 out of 4. So it's kind of similar to his points prop that we saw earlier. So maybe there's correlation there. If he hits the over on his points, then maybe there's a good chance for him to hit the over on his PRA as well. But not the greatest hit rates, just 50%. Just 50%. Point guards against the Clippers last 7 games, they're giving up 22 points, over 5.5 rebounds. So we'll call that, 27.5, and then 8 assists. So, they're sitting right around 35.5 PRA allowed. He's going to need 18. So there is upside here against the Clippers, against his former team. It's not impossible. He could get it done, but he's not really a primary offensive weapon or anything like that for Minnesota. I will tell you this, at 17.5 on PrizePicks, he's at 18.5 out on your favorite sports books. At 18.5, he is being bet over minus 130 on both DraftKings and BetMGM, and he's projected to go over his PRA at 22.1. So we're getting a PRA value on Patrick Beverley. I know you're talking about taking the under, but he is 1 PRA lower on PrizePicks versus the sports books. So being that he's at 18.5 and they're betting the over at 18.5, the public is, maybe we should be thinking about taking the over at Patrick Beverley at 17.5. But again, I don't know that it's my favorite prop. I'm just pointing out that there is a discrepancy there in his PRA line, 17.5 versus 18.5. So otherwise, what other props are you guys liking? Douglas, you're mentioning Seth Curry over PRA. He's at 17.5 today. That number has come up a little bit, versus the last few days or whatever. Let's take a look at Seth Curry real quick. Clicking in here on him, he's at 16.5 by default over on props.cash. If we bump him up to 17.5, you can see that his hit rates over the last 10 games are 60%, but he is riding a 4-game hit streak here. 4 straight games where he's gone over 17.5 PRA, doing so against Detroit, Milwaukee, New York, and today's opponent, Cleveland. He had 19 PRA against Cleveland in that game. Do you think that the usage will dramatically shift or just slightly shift to the stars on this Brooklyn Nets team? In other words, do you think guys like Bruce Brown, Seth Curry, who have been, pretty decent contributors and role players, do you think that their roles diminish and that it becomes really, really superstar heavy? Like the usage goes up even higher for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, or do you think it kind of more or less stays the same? It'd be interesting to see now that it's playoff time if guys like Kyrie and KD become more of a ball hog, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe they'll become more ball hogs, but yes, Seth Curry has done a great job over the last 5 games. Like I said, 80% hit rate, gone over 17.5 in 4 straight games. As far as the projection goes, let's take a look at that. Curry projected for 18.8, but we are paying a premium. He's at 17.5 on PrizePicks, but 16.5 out on your favorite sports book. So we are paying a premium, a 1 PRA premium. So if you're wanting to take the over on Seth Curry at 17.5, just know that you're not getting any value. It's actually a negative EV. Instead of a positive EV play, it's a negative EV play because he's a whole PRA higher. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be pretty good correlation. You guys keep talking about the first half PRA. I know it's a new category and everything, but there's going to be pretty strong correlation between first half PRA and first half fantasy score. So like Bruce Brown, 4 for 5, right? First half PRA. We go to his fantasy score, 4 for 5. It's not all that different from fantasy score. There's certain guys who are good at steals, good at blocks, who tend to have more steals and blocks, where I think their steals and blocks will outweigh the potential turnovers that they could have. And those guys are probably better fantasy score players. But I would be looking at the hit rates for like first half PRA, like he's 2 for 5. Kevin Durant's 2 for 5. Then you look at his fantasy score, he's 3 for 5, right? So I would be comparing the two. Like, don't just take PRA first half because it's the new kid on the block kind of thing, Gonna have to compare. Some of these guys hit at a higher rate with fantasy score than they do PRA. And sometimes it's just dumb luck. It's just, found a lucky steal, found a lucky block that made them hit the fantasy versus the, PRA. But anyway, we'll keep it rolling here. 3-point makes. Is there any 3-point props from the Cleveland-Brooklyn game that's standing out to you guys? Let me know. I'll pull up the trends here using props.cash. Let's refresh, make sure we have all the latest data pulled in on props.cash. Go to the 3-point category. We will go to the last 10 games and we will filter by Cleveland-Brooklyn. Leading the way is Bruce Brown at 0.5 3-point makes. He's got a 70% hit rate. From there, we got 3 guys hitting at a 60% hit rate. Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry, and Darius Garland, all hitting their 3-point props at a 60% clip or better. From there, you got Kevin Durant and Kevin Love, a couple of Kevins, 50% hit rate on their 3-point prop. Then you got Lauri Markkanen, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro at a 40% hit rate. They are down at the bottom. Let's see here. You guys are mentioning, we got KD at a 28.5 point taco. I like that. I'm glad that they didn't settle for the 29.5 and they bumped it down to 28.5. Is that official? Or are we still voting? Are we in the voting? We might still be in the voting stage. Okay. We might still be in the voting stage. 3-point props. You guys are talking Darius Garland at 2.5. As I mentioned, Garland, 60% hit rate, covering his 3-point makes, which are set at 2.5 today, going up against Brooklyn. Take a look at Darius Garland here. Maybe his 25.5 points look a little bit too high for you, but you want to take a scoring prop for Garland, consider maybe taking his 3-point makes. The last 10 games, he has gone over this number in 6 out of 10, 60%, averaging 2.8 3-point makes in that 10-game span. We look at the last 5, things get even greener. They get even better. His hit rates jump up to 80% in the last 5 games, going 4 out of 5, while averaging 3.2 3-point makes in that 5-game span. Now, the 4 games against Brooklyn this season, he's covered this in 2 out of 4, 50% hit rate, averaging 2.5 3-point makes in that span. So the most recent game, he did bury 3 threes back on April 8th. Again, that was 4 days ago. 4 days ago. As far as this season, his hit rates, let's look at the splits here. At home versus away tonight, again, he is on the road. But at home this season, 61% hit rate. On the road, just a 43% hit rate. So, pretty significant split difference here. If he was at home, I'd feel better about taking the over than I would taking it tonight where he's on the road. Just due to the splits, there's about a 20% difference in his splits. When we look at the point guard position in the last 7 games, we go find Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets giving up 2.9 3-point makes to opposing point guards. That kind of puts them right in the middle of the pack. Close to 3 threes allowed per game, which is what he's going to need to find tonight, is 3 threes to hit the over, that is, to hit the over. Maybe you're taking the under. Maybe you're just going to fade it. Maybe you're just going to fade it. He is projected for 2.9 3-point makes, and the betting public likes the over. They're betting it up -125 to go over 2.5. 2.5. So you guys are saying that Kevin Durant's PRA is smashing the votes for the taco? Okay, cool. Any other 3-point props you guys want me to take a look at from either of these games? Cleveland, Brooklyn, Clippers, or T-Wolves? Anthony Edwards is leading the way in that Minnesota Timberwolves LA Clippers game. 70% hit rate at 2.5, but we're getting him at 3. So there's a chance that he ends up in a tie or a push. What's up, Suavlos? First time catching your stream. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for subscribing. Hopefully you're subscribed. Jen Pierce. Did I do Marcus Morris? I did not talk about any Marcus Morris for 3-point makes, but he is covering his 3-point prop at a 40% clip. Ant Edwards, though, I think he's worth talking about at a 70% hit rate. Let's dig into Anthony Edwards real quick. Again, being that he's bumped up from 2.5 to 3, there's a real chance, real chance here that he ends up in a tie or a push. We bump him up to 3, and he's hit 3 or more 3-point makes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of his last 10 games. Against the Clippers this season, he's hit 3 or more threes in 3 out of 5 games. So that's a 75% hit rate. So it's looking like real potential here for a push. Now with Patrick Beverley, D'Angelo Russell in the backcourt, Anthony Edwards is going to be your small forward. So against opposing small forwards in the last 7 games, the Los Angeles Clippers are giving up about 2.7 3-point makes. Not the greatest matchup. That kind of puts them like middle of the pack, but down closer toward the bottom than the top. So a tough matchup for Edwards. I do have him projected for 3.3 3-point makes. He's a huge betting favorite at 2.5, which is why PrizePicks most likely bumped him up to 3. We're seeing minus 170 action coming in over 2.5 3-point makes. Gang, we're focusing on tonight's 2-game NBA slate. So we're not doing like the Hawks or Spurs or any of those guys. That way we have something to talk about tomorrow, to be honest with you. Because if I talked about everything that was on the PrizePicks board today, you probably wouldn't see me tomorrow. I would just be like, all right, I'm checking out. We talked about everything. So we're just going to cover tonight's games, but we'll be back here tomorrow to talk about tomorrow's games. So hold those props. And I'm not telling you not to take anything from games tomorrow. I mean, they got props already up on the board for like Saturday. I'm definitely not talking about Saturday's games on a Tuesday. But I'm trying to stagger this content out so we have a stream, so we have a show, so we have stuff to talk about. They might bump lines. That's what I'm saying. If you want to talk about them, take them. You can go ahead and jump on them now if you like them, Hector. I agree. You got to jump on them early. Even though I'm not talking about them, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be taking them. Because to your point, they will definitely bump those things. They do that. Lil Bro Maury TV. Both you and Jen are asking about some Marcus Morris 3-point props, so let's take a look at him. He's at 1.5. He's going up against Minnesota. One half of the Morris brothers, the Morris twins. This half is Marcus Morris. So what are you guys wanting to do with this? Are you wanting to take the over or under? Like, what are you guys leaning toward on this? You asked if I talked about it, but you didn't really give me sort of your lean. Are you wanting to go over or under? I mean, based on what I'm seeing here, last 10 games, I would say that at a 40% hit rate, it ain't looking too sexy, right? It ain't looking too good. We look at the only game against Minnesota, which was played back in January. He had just 1 3-point make in that game. Let's also look at the last 5 games. Why do I want to look at the last 5 games? Well, those last 5 games all included Paul George making his return to the Clippers starting lineup. So in those last 5 games, he's only gone over 1.5 3-point makes in 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5. So he's got to bury 2 in order to hit the over for you. Let's look at his splits this season. I think that would be a good look as well. He's on the road. Let's start with the home splits first. At 1.5, he's made 2 or more threes in 56% of his games at home. But tonight he is on the road. And funny enough, his road splits are exactly the same as his home splits. He is at 56% at home, 56% on the road. Dead freaking even. So no real advantage of him playing at LA or at Minnesota. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. Keeps it the same. Minnesota's defense ranks 25th in total threes allowed, 13th in 3-point field goal percentage, 15th against opposing power forwards. So not a scary team defensively when it comes to defending the 3 ball. He's probably going to be the power forward, I'd say. Paul George, the small forward. So let's look at power forwards over the last 7 games against the T-Wolves. T-Wolves are giving up about 2.5 3-point makes, which puts them just outside the top 10 as far as rankings. So they're giving up a fair amount of 3-point makes to opposing power forwards. And then for a projection, I've got him projected for exactly 2 3-point makes, which is what he would need to hit to get you that over that you guys are talking about. The betting public liking the over on Marcus Morris, minus 130 to go over at 1.5 3-point makes. So you're going to look at the hit rates for Morris against Minnesota in the last 5 games with Paul George being back. Don't forget, Norman Powell's also in the mix now for the Clippers. So while the number seems decent at 1.5, he's only got to bury 2 3-pointers to hit the over. There are some things that are kind of, going to factor into this. Maybe he gets less minutes with Paul George there. I'm sure that his usage will go down. Maybe Norman Powell cuts into his playing time a little bit. So I don't believe Marcus Morris is out. I don't think so. The only player that I saw from this morning that was on the injury report for the Clippers was Luke Kennard. So, unless something crazy happened, but I don't think so. Anyway, let's just wrap this thing up. Over 2 hours talking 2 games. Holy smokes. Free throw makes. Darius Garland, he's a high usage guy. I think he's going to be in a pretty decent spot for free throw makes. As long as he's attacking and is aggressive. He did hit 4 free throws against Brooklyn the last time they played 4 days ago. So he's always in the consideration. You want those high usage guys. Guys are going to be handling the basketball quite a bit. Guys are going to get to the free throw line and make the most of their opportunities too. You want guys who are shooting at a good free throw percentage. So Kevin Durant, he'll probably also be worth taking because at 8.5 free throw makes, he's hit the over in 4 out of 5 games, including his last meeting against Cleveland where he buried 10 free throws. So that could be a good look. Kevin Durant over 8.5. Kyrie, a little bit too inconsistent for me. 1 out of his last 5 games, he's hit the over. I just don't know if he's quite aggressive enough. Paul George could be a good look. Since making his return to the starting lineup back on March 29th, he has hit the over on 5.5 free throw makes in 3 out of 5 games. So as long as he is being aggressive, slashing, looking to get his shot, then I like that. This guy, Karl Anthony Towns, not going to be high on my list as far as free throw makes go. 1 out of his last 5. I mean, against guys like Jakob Poeltl, had just 3 free throw makes. Even against bad defenses like Washington and Houston, he did not get there. 2 against Toronto. I mean, teams that, should be like more on the undersized, like overmatched, like he's just not drawing contact. So I question his aggressiveness at times. And so, yeah. So Morris is not out. Kennard listed as questionable. Kennard is out. Okay. Morris isn't out, but Kennard is. Gotcha. Anyways, gang, that's going to be it. I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about. I mean, there probably is. We could go into the weeds a bit more on fantasy score and all that. But, 2 games. Save some of your money for some MLB or the tacos that are coming. It sounds like we're going to get a Kevin Durant PRA discount from what you guys are saying. And then, we'll be back at it tomorrow talking more basketball. That's it for today, though. Cleveland, Brooklyn, Minnesota, LAC. Should be some good basketball. You guys enjoy. We got the rest of the playoffs. The NBA season, postseason, doesn't end until June. So you're stuck with me for a while on these live streams. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the likes, all the love, all the subs. And if you're in Discord, if you're in Patreon, I'm going to be posting some MLB picks, some NBA picks, and we'll keep the conversation rolling, the research and information flowing. So we'll catch you over there. Good luck today on all your entries. Let's make the most of these tacos. Happy Taco Tuesday. Peace.